Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the MSME entrepreneur. Tonight on the show, we're talking about the elevator and the escalator market here in India, how it is changing and what you, the MSME entrepreneur, should know. I'm in conversation on the crux with Amit Gosain. He's the MD of Kone India. Take a listen to a slice of this interview I did earlier. Amit, thanks very much for speaking with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. My first question to you tonight, Amit, let's start by talking about the opportunity for you at Kone India. You're sitting at the top. What's the market looking like?
Kone is one of the largest manufacturers of elevators and escalator company in the world. We actually call ourselves a people flow company because that's our job, to ensure very smooth people flow. In India, we are the leading elevator and escalator company, and we manufacture in Chennai. We have a large manufacturing factory. We also have a large global technology center that's based out of Chennai, and we have about 43 offices around the country which cater to needs of India.
Everyone's talking clean energy, everyone's talking green energy, saving energy, etc. You've recently launched a set of products that saves up to 35% of electricity. Just run us through that, how really the market for products like this perhaps is changing and evolving as well.
Yeah, so one of the things that Kone has been very focused on is innovation. And when you look at our history, Kone has been in the Forbes list of most innovative companies in the world. We've been in top 100 for 7 years in a row. So energy efficiency and green elevators is something that we've always been doing. You look at historically, we introduced the concept of machine roomless elevators, which is now of course very common across the industry. And these elevators that we've now produced have also been designed so that the energy efficiency, keeping that in mind, but also more importantly, the aesthetic sense of, from a cultural point of view, Indians are very colorful. They like a lot of aesthetics. So that is what we've designed. The elevators are also designed based on the Navratna concept, which is the 9-gem theory. So, when people get into an elevator, it's more of a style statement that people want to make, that this is my good elevator. So apart from energy efficiency, I'd say that the 9-gem theory and 27 designs, that is almost 3 designs in every gem, is what we've created. And these are very innovative. Nowhere else in the world you would find such designs, made for India, made for our consumers in India.
Speaking of the market here in India, GST and demonetization has definitely had an impact. Reports we were looking at suggesting that since November 2016, the market for elevators and escalators has gone down by 5 to 7%. What's been that impact on you? Can you give us a sense? Can you quantify really whether you've seen an impact, and what are your plans then to try and maybe offset the impact you've seen?
Yes, so demonetization has had an impact, and if you look at all the industries, it did have an impact on almost all the industries because of the circulation of the currency in rupee. But the biggest impact it had was on real estate, because real estate was actually one industry where there was a lot more circulation of money, which suddenly stopped for a period of time. So when you look at builders, they were facing a little bit of a difficult time. They had to pay the salaries to all their employees, plus also continue to make investments for the consumers to give their apartments. So when that got delayed, the whole process of elevator being bought also got delayed. So while you did mention before that there was a 5 to 7% drop in elevator industry, that was one of the main reasons why it actually went through a little bit of a bad phase. But then again, things started going back to normal after a period of time, but it did take about a year to get back to normal. We as Kone, we kind of changed the game a little bit because we introduced new products. We introduced good home elevators. So we did not have that impact of let's say a downside which the industry did. So we gained market share because of launching of new products and being closer to the customers by expanding into various parts of India and also South Asia. Like we are now in Sri Lanka, We are quite aggressively now in Nepal as well, and Bangladesh as well as Bhutan.
This year's budget has given a big boost and a thrust as far as infrastructure and particularly elevators at railway stations are concerned. Is that going to be a big opportunity? How do you expect that the market then will pan out and change to be able to give rise to these newer opportunities?
Yeah, so when you look at the last 2 quarters, there's already been an improvement in the market. So the market is improving, but slowly. It won't have a very immediate impact. These things are slightly longer term projects. Housing for all by 2022, it will start now, but the real positive impact, if it goes in the right track, will be felt in 2019-2020. When you look at railway stations, that's there in the budget, having an elevator or an escalator in every railway station with a footfall of plus 25,000 plus people. That will again have a very positive impact on the industry, but longer term, because it's going to take time for the railways to actually have elevators, escalators, and by the time things start picking up, it's going to be a little bit of a time. But I think the housing market will have more of a positive impact than the railway stations or the other infrastructure. The other thing, of course, there are a lot of airports that have to be modernized. It's there in the budget, which is a requirement, big requirement in India. A lot of metros that have to come in, so that's again a big requirement of India. So that will again have a very positive impact on the industry.
For companies like yours, I would presume that the government presents a big chunk of your revenues and your projects. You spoke recently about wanting to land more government projects. Give us a sense of what perhaps you're doing in that. What kind of government projects maybe that you would like to see, and what you're already perhaps doing in that space.
Yeah, so I talked about airports, metros. It's actually important to have our visibility now. Government projects, maybe the whole tendering process needs to be in such a way that there are good global manufacturers like Kone, and there are others as well, who have a very high quality product. They are really not able to participate only when it's to do with price, because we can't lower our standards or our quality of the product. It has to be the same globally, same as to be in India. So that's something that the government needs to look at. But from our side, we are becoming a little more aggressive to win certain key projects which can help in the people flow of what the Indian people are also looking at, the government is looking at, because that's something that we want to actually ensure that people flowing through various metros, through airports is very smooth. And that's the job that we do. And that's why we've got a lot of innovations, a lot of let's say IoTs step in that direction that we're working on.
I just want to also set the context in terms of what your current market size in India is at, Amit.
So India is the second largest market for elevators and escalators. I'd say you just mentioned that the market came down a little. So we are about 50,000 elevators and escalators plus 50,000 plus elevators and escalators in India. And so that is where the market is. We have a market share which is 20% plus. So we are the leading player in India.
We were just talking about the demand for energy efficient infrastructure projects, for instance. Maybe you can also talk to us about how India compares with its global counterparts. You have a bird's eye view when it comes to different markets. How do we, how are we doing when it comes to some of our global peers?
So Indian market did have a little bit of challenging times in the last, I'd say about 3 years. It's now coming back up, but before that Indian market was growing for elevators and escalators. When you compare it to other markets, China was of course doing quite well, and so that is Europe, America is doing quite well, and Europe is actually, I'd say, a stable market now, and I think that's also, they're also looking at ways to grow. So from an Indian perspective, I think because there's so many people in India that for us to build buildings, we have to go upwards. We have to go vertical upwards, because a lot of people are trying to come to cities. So what the government with smart cities is trying to do is get people in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which are also going to develop, but they also have to go upwards because all the people are being concentrated in these cities. So that's why we are different. 1.3 billion people, which is much higher than anywhere else in the world. Therefore, I think it's important that we have world-class buildings with world-class elevators so that the vertical transportation can be really good.
Time for a break. We'll continue talking about how the elevator and escalator market in India is changing and what you should keep in mind about the role that technology is playing here. Do stay tuned. Coming back after a very short break. with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on the show we're talking about the elevator and escalator market with the leader and the name when it comes to this industry, Kone India, talking to us about some of the changes that MSMEs can look forward to in this industry. Take a listen to some of the things I posed to the MD of Kone India. We've been talking about the opportunities all along. Let's talk also about perhaps some of the challenges that you see in India, maybe a couple of the biggest challenges that you've seen in India while operating in this market, and use that to sort of talk to our MSMEs, talk to our small businesses about what those challenges have been and what the takeaways have been from that.
Okay, some of the challenges of the recent past have been these sudden policy changes, and I'm saying they're the short-term challenges. So you had demonetization we talked about, then you had RERA, which of course is a very good thing for the consumer because the consumer gets his project on time or the apartments on time. But then you had GST. So for people to understand what a GST is, you know, they had to pay in some cases an additional tax, and they're saying, why should we pay that? Now the builders get input credit, but we had to explain that you get the credit from the government. The consumer is saying, I've finalized a project, why should I pay tax? But you know, tax is something that we need to pay to the government. So the whole part of explaining to the consumer that these are the taxes introduced by the government, they could be high in some states, lower in other states, so benefiting in some of the other states. Where the tax went lower, people didn't complain, of course, but where it went higher, there was a bit of a challenge to explain to the people that it's a tax. So these are the challenges that you find in a country like India, which is so huge. Not, I'd say that, you know, they take a little time to understand the changes, and these changes are very, very quick. So now I think people have understood, not in its entirety, but most people have understood. So things are getting smoother. Of course, RERA, like I mentioned, will be very helpful consumers, but is it really good for all the builders? Is there something that the government needs to improve so that the real estate segment itself picks up? And if the real estate segment picks up, our industry will also pick up. Because you know, it's important, it's one of the biggest employers in India. I think it's the top 4 employers, real estate segment. So it's very important for the government to ensure that the real estate industry is doing very well.
We were talking about energy efficiency, and one part of that also is the use of technology. I do know recently you've announced a partnership with IBM for the Internet of Things, or IoT, when it comes to some of your products and projects. Just run us through that.
So when you look at servicing of elevators or escalators, you know, in elevators there is a technician who comes, he checks, and then, you know, if there is anything wrong, he corrects it and goes back. Now Internet of Things will have a very proactive approach. It will be preventive maintenance. It will all be on your, actually it will be all on the screen, where the machine really talks to the machine. You know, are you okay? Are there more people who've come into your elevator? These are the questions. The machine's asking another question, and then the machine answers, I'm fine, the temperature is a little high. And so it does all the preventive maintenance checks right there for us to actually look at, and we'll know where the problem is going to happen, and then we can fix them. So that's why this IoT, in simple terms, I was just trying to explain this, and therefore it's going to be very helpful because your breakdowns won't happen, and you'll have, I'd say, I won't say it will eliminate entrapments together because it's a machine after all, but it will reduce the number of entrapments to a big extent. And you know, we're manufacturing world-class quality elevators and escalators anyway, so I think that should reduce naturally.
A couple of years ago, it may have seemed far-fetched to talk about technology when it came to say anything to do with the construction space, but more and more companies, particularly companies like yours, market leaders like yours, are talking about marrying technology when it comes to escalators and elevators. So what really is the role of technology, particularly in a country like India?
Technology actually plays a very important role in our industry, and when you look at Kone as a company, we are one of the most innovative companies in the world 7 times in a row, like I mentioned, which means we've been always innovating, we've always coming out with different solutions. IoT being one of them, but there are a lot more others. We introduced machine roomless elevators. We also introduced gearless elevators. So there are a lot of things that you know, companies like us and you know, other manufacturers also have done in this arena. But one very important thing we do is we also promote startups. We promote young entrepreneurs. For instance, we did a hackathon. We do it in various parts of the world. We did one in India, a lot of interest. There were about 2,500 young entrepreneurs from you know, studying in colleges who came with their different kind of setups and innovations. We had people from the industry also and new startups that came up. So there were 3 clear winners, and we are kind of helping them to set up their innovations in India. So that is the kind of things that we do generally. But even when you look at us, we have a technology center in various parts of the world, but one in Chennai which has got software engineers. They're actually taking global designs for Indian needs. So they're redesigning the products which meet the need of the Indian market. For example, I gave the new launch products that we did, the U Mono, the U series, the U Mono and U Mini. We've launched products which are more energy efficient, but more importantly also meeting the aesthetic needs of the people of India, because our people are very colorful. They like a lot of color in whatever they do in their houses, and so we've produced elevators that are very colorful as well. So that's something that we continue to do.
So is India looking like an exciting market for you, Amit? What are some of the expansion plans perhaps that you can share with us?
So we've just recently expanded our innovation center. So we have a customer experience center. The customer is the king. So customer is extremely important to us, and therefore based on the feedback that we've got from our customers, we've designed these new elevators, both in terms of their aesthetic, the size, etc. And we've got an experience center where the customers can come, they can see for themselves what kind of elevators they've designed for themselves and for India. So that's something that we've just expanded. Then we are also expanding our factory. We're moving into a new location in Chennai, and by 2019 we'll have that factory operational. We have a very technologically high good factory currently that we operate in, but this expansion will also take place. But one very important expansion that we do is we are expanding our people to different parts of India, so that they are very close to the customers. They don't have to travel much now to meet the needs of the customer. So travel time is very reduced. We have various offices that cater to the needs of various people, and so the maximum they should travel is not more than 50-60 kilometers, so that they can meet their service needs, their new sales needs, etc. So that's our objective, and we'll keep expanding and come closer to the customer.
Given the size of the market that you were speaking about here in India, what are some of the challenges and opportunities for MSMEs? Just sort of outline it for our viewers to say this perhaps is where you see the market heading for them, and what the specific opportunities that small businesses can participate in are.
So a huge opportunity. We in Kone constantly look for world-class suppliers. They can set up their plants either near our factory or even elsewhere where they can supply us. And so does our industry, because this industry is bound to grow vertically upwards. Not only in housing needs of the people, which is huge in our country, but also the metros are growing. There's modernization of airports that's happening, new airports coming up. So this industry will grow. It's been a slightly slow process in the last 3 to 4 years, but it will grow much faster. Therefore, we'll need more and more suppliers to supply to us, so that we can supply good quality, high quality elevators and escalators in the right quantities, so that we can meet the demand.
I was talking very briefly about the budget earlier. I want to talk about the role of the government, what the role of the government is when it comes specifically to your space, the escalator as well as the elevator space, and not just the larger, say, construction space. In your industry, what's the role of the government? What role should the government play, and what's it doing right now?
The government regulations need to be more favorable to the industry. Government is doing a lot. They've got online registrations now and made it easier for startups, etc. But I must say, the states that remove a lot of entry barriers, that make business environment very conducive, that have the right infrastructure, that's where the investments of the industries will go. This is just a general point. But for elevator and escalator industry, I'd say if one of the things that the government should look at is the lift tax, because this is an industry which has got a lot of safety that has to be there in equipment, since we are actually moving people up and down or moving in escalators, so moving them vertically. So the safety regulations have to be stringent, and the government needs to be working on one safety regulation, so that some players who are not making very safe elevators follow those standards. I know that price and cost is important for a consumer, but I think most importantly, it's safety.
All right, time to wrap things up here on this interview. Amit, what's the road ahead looking like for you? A couple of things or projects that you're looking forward to, perhaps you can leave us with?
I think it's looking very good. I think the policy changes are done, so the short-term impact has been through. The medium term is looking nice, it's looking good. Housing for all, a great step by the government. I think if that fructifies and that actually takes off, then it will also have a very positive impact on the elevator industry and the escalator industry, and also on the way we innovate for people flow and make sure things are happening in the right direction. A lot of metros coming up, a lot of airports being modernized and coming up. So I think India is going to expand, and if you have to really grow in India, the infrastructure has to be world class, and that is the focus of any government. I'd say the current government and any other government, they'll have to focus on the needs of the people, and the needs can only be met when you improve your infrastructure.
That's our show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, we love hearing from you. Here's how you get in touch. leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com is our email ID. On social media, tweet at me personally at Sunanda_J, or our official Twitter handle LOT_ETNA or Times Influence. You can also reach us on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ETNA. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.